The council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Chen finished her report. Around her, representatives from a dozen alien species sat in their floating seats, watching her with expressions that ranged from pity to discomfort. She had just told them the truth. Earth's defense fleet was down to 12%. 47 human colonies have been consumed by the Xiaothran swarm in 6 months. The evacuations had failed. The Kethran representative, a tall being made of what looked like living crystal, spoke first. His voice echoed like wind chimes. We offer humanitarian relocation to surviving humans. There are labor positions available on frontier worlds. Chun understood what that meant. Humanity would survive as servants, scattered across the galaxy, their civilization erased. She looked around the chamber at the faces of species who had lived for thousands of years. They had seen promising young races fall before. To them, humanity was just another statistic. Thank you for the offer, Chun said quietly. We'll consider it. She didn't mention that Earth had already rejected that option. Humanity would rather die free than live as someone else's workers. On Mars Research Station Omega, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo stared at the Xiaothran specimen in the containment field. The Sarah's adjustment field. The creature looked like a mixture of insect and machine, its body shifting between organic tissue and metallic growths. It had been alive when they captured it 3 weeks ago. Now it was dormant, possibly dead, possibly just waiting. Her assistant, Dr. Park, entered the lab carrying coffee. You've been here for 18 hours straight. The swarm consumed Kepler 442b. In 6 days, Sarah said, without looking away from the specimen. My family had no warning. By the time the evacuation ships arrived, there was nothing left but hive structures. Park said nothing. Everyone had lost someone. The swarm didn't discriminate. Sarah leaned closer to the containment field. They're not just eating us. They're following a pattern. Look at the colony consumption order. She pulled up a holographic map. They hit resource-rich targets first, but not the closest ones. They prioritize based on something else. Strategic value? Park suggested. Maybe. Or maybe something we don't understand yet. Sarah highlighted the specimen's neural structure. They're all connected. A hive mind. But hive minds need communication. And communication can be disrupted. Park looked skeptical. The military already tried jamming. The swarm adapted in hours. Because we tried to block the signal. What if we spoke their language wrong instead? Sarah's fingers flew across the holographic controls. Send corrupted commands. Make them confused. That's theoretically possible, Park admitted. But we'd need months of research and testing. Sarah glanced at the countdown on her wall display. It showed Earth's estimated time until the swarm's arrival. 4 months and 12 days. Then we'd better work fast. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the carrier Indomitable, watching the tactical display. Each red dot represented a swarm fleet. There were hundreds of them. The blue dots representing human ships were barely visible in comparison. Sir, new orders from Earth Command. His communications officer said Webb already knew what the orders would say. He'd been expecting them for weeks. Read them. All remaining military assets are to fall back to the Sol system. Outlying colonies are formally abandoned. We're gathering for a final defensive stand at Earth. The bridge crew went silent. Webb looked at the tactical map again. There were 23 colonies that would be left behind. Millions of people. They would die when the swarm arrived. Acknowledge the orders, Webb said. His voice sounded hollow even to himself. Begin plotting jump coordinates for Sol. His tactical officer, Commander Liu, spoke carefully. Sir, Titan's Hope is sending a distress signal. They're requesting evacuation support. Titan's Hope is 3 days away, Webb said. The swarm will reach it in 2 weeks. We don't have time. Liu said nothing, but Webb could see the judgment in her eyes. He was leaving 20,000 people to die. It didn't matter that he had no choice. It didn't matter that staying would only add his crew to the death toll. He was still abandoning them. "Sir, there's a personal message for you," the communications officer said. "From Mars Research Station. It's marked urgent." Webb almost ignored it. Personal messages could wait. But something made him pause. "Put it through to my ready room." 5 minutes later, he was reading Dr. Okonkwo's research. At first, he thought it was just another desperate theory from a scientist trying to find hope. But as he read further, his expression changed. It wasn't a solution. Not yet, but it was a threat. A possibility. He opened a secure channel to Earth Command. "This is Admiral Webb. I need authorization to postpone our return to Seoul. I may have found something." On Titan's Hope, Kai Nakamura stood in the colony's control center, looking at the evacuation schedule. It was a lie. There weren't enough ships. There never had been. The last transport could take maybe 2,000 people. The rest would stay behind. "We could draw lots," his partner Elena suggested. She was the colony's chief medical officer, and the stress was showing in her face. "Make it fair." Kai shook his head. "Fair doesn't matter anymore. We take the children first, then the parents, then essential personnel who can rebuild somewhere else. And us?" Kai looked at her. They both knew neither of them qualified for evacuation. "We stay. We keep the colony running as long as we can. Give the others time to get away." Elena was quiet for a moment. "There has to be another option." "There isn't." Kai pulled up the colony's resource inventory. Life support would last 6 weeks, maybe 7 if they rationed. After that, everyone left behind would suffocate. Unless what? Kai stared at the inventory data. Mining lasers, fusion reactors, ore processing equipment. The colony was built into a large asteroid, and that asteroid had engines for position adjustment. Weak engines, meant for small corrections, but engines nonetheless. "We're not a colony anymore," Kai said slowly. "We're a weapon." Elena stared at him. "You want to turn Titan's Hope into a bomb?" "Not a bomb, a missile." Kai started pulling up the swarm's projected approach routes. "Look, they follow the same pattern every time. They send supply fleets ahead of the main force. Those fleets use predictable routes because they're hauling resources. What if an asteroid-sized object suddenly appeared in their path?" "That's insane." "It's desperate," Kai corrected. "There's a difference." 3 days later, Ambassador Chung stood before the Galactic Council again. She hadn't planned to return so soon, but Admiral Webb had convinced her. She held a data chip containing Dr. Okonkwo's research. "Humanity requests military aid for an offensive operation," she announced. The chamber erupted. The Morellian representative made a sound like grinding gears, which Chen had learned was their version of laughter. The Dravok representative, a massive being covered in stone-like armor, simply stared. "You cannot be serious," the Kethran representative said. "Your species is on the brink of extinction. You should be planning evacuation, not attacks." Chun activated the holographic projector. Dr. Okonkwo's research filled the air above them. "We've identified the swarm's central hub in this sector, a biological construct in Kepler 442 that coordinates their regional operations. If we destroy it, we fragment their command structure. It would give us months to evacuate and regroup." "And how do you intend to reach it?" the Morellian asked. "You would need to pass through 3 swarm-controlled systems. Your fleet would be destroyed in the first." "Probably," Chun admitted, "but we're going to try anyway." The Dravok representative, Kazrek, stood. His movement silenced the chamber. "We have watched species die with dignity. We have not seen one choose to fight in their final hours." He paused. "It is refreshing. Will you help us? Chan asked. No, Kazrek said, but I will not stop you. That is more than most receive. Chan nodded. It was more than she'd expected. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral Webb assembled his officers. We have authorization for the strike. Dr. Okonkwo's disruption. Technology will give us a window to break through swarm formations. It's not much, but it's something. How many ships do we have? Commander Liu asked. 12 capital ships. 47 support vessels. Webb pulled up the tactical projection. It's not enough. But volunteers are already arriving from every human outpost. Retired officers. Merchant crews. Even civilian ships are being armed. They'll be slaughtered, someone said. Yes, Webb agreed. But they'll be fighting. That's what matters now. We're past survival. We're into legacy. If we die making sure the swarm remembers humanity. He looked at each officer in turn. I won't order anyone to come. This is volunteer only. If you want to transfer to a defensive posting at Earth, do it now. No judgment. No one moved. Webb felt something shift in his chest. Not hope exactly. Something harder. Determination. Then let's get to work. On Titan's Hope, Kai stood before the assembled colonists. 3,000 people packed into the main hall. The evacuation ships can take 2,000, he said. The rest of us will stay behind and turn this colony into a weapon. We'll aim Titan's Hope at the swarm supply lines. When they intercept us, we'll detonate every reactor we have. That's suicide, someone shouted. Yes, Kai said, but it's useful suicide. We can take out 20% of their regional supplies. Give Earth a fighting chance. How many people do you need? 300 to operate the systems during the approach. Everyone else evacuates. 3,000 hands went up. Kai felt his throat tighten. Thank you. But I only need 300. The rest of you need to live. Tell people what we did here. Tell them that humanity doesn't quit. Later, as they began modifying the colony's systems, Elena found him in the engineering bay. This is really happening, she said. Yes, I'm staying with the hospital patients. Someone has to care for them until the end. Kai wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in her eyes. The same determination he felt. Then make it count, he said. She kissed him. You too. Across human space, 3 desperate plans took shape. Dr. Okonkwo worked 20-hour days perfecting her disruption technology. Admiral Webb gathered a fleet that shouldn't exist, built from spare parts and stubborn hope. Kai Nakamura and his volunteers transformed a mining colony into a weapon. None of them expected to survive. But they all expected to matter. And in a galaxy that had written humanity off as dead. That was enough to change everything. The hub's structural integrity was failing. Dr. Okonkwo watched from the Indomitable's lab as the readings cascaded into critical levels. The massive biological construct was collapsing, its internal systems unable to sustain the damage humanity had inflicted. It's working, she whispered to herself. Her family's faces flashed through her mind. Her parents. Her brother. Everyone lost on Kepler 442b. This is for you. On the bridge, Admiral Webb gripped his command chair as another explosion rocked the carrier. The tactical display showed only 2 human ships still fighting, the Indomitable and a lone frigate named Perseverance. Everything else was gone. But the hub was dying. All remaining power to forward weapons, Webb ordered. One more push. The Indomitable's railguns fired their last rounds. Missile tubes launched everything that remained. Energy weapons glowed white-hot as they emptied their capacitors. Beside them, the Perseverance did the same, the frigate's captain visible on the view screen, even with communications down. Her expression fierce and determined. The hub split apart. Massive sections of biological tissue tore away from the central structure. Internal explosions rippled through the construct as its own systems turned against it. The swarm's coordination network, centered in that hub, went silent. Across the entire sector, the Zothran ships suddenly lost their connection to the hive mind. "Target destroyed," Commander Liu said, her voice shaking. "The hub is gone." Webb wanted to feel triumphant. Instead, he just felt tired. 9,000 dead. Dozens of ships lost. Kai Nakamura and Titan's Hope, the Redemption's final charge. All of it leading to this moment. "Get me damage reports," he said. "And someone find out if the Perseverance is still operational." The answer came quickly. The Indomitable was barely functional, limping on backup systems, life support failing on 6 decks. The Perseverance was in worse shape, held together by emergency patches and the crew's stubborn refusal to die. But they were alive. Humanity had 2 ships left from a fleet of 60. Around them, the swarm forces drifted in confusion. Without the hub's coordination, individual drones reverted to basic programming. Some attacked each other. Some simply stopped moving. The hive mind network for this entire sector had been shattered. Webb opened the only communication channel still working, a short-range emergency frequency. "Perseverance, this is Indomitable. Can you jump?" A crackling response came back. "Negative, Indomitable. Our jump drives are slag. We're stuck here." "Then we'll tow you," Webb said. "We're not leaving anyone behind. Not after this." It took 3 hours to rig the tow cables. 3 hours while swarm drones drifted past, no longer coordinated enough to attack. The sight was eerie. Thousands of alien ships, motionless or fighting each other, like a nightmare frozen in time. Dr. Okonkwo used the time to analyze the hub's destruction. Her readings confirmed what she'd hoped. The swarm's regional coordination was completely disrupted. It would take months for them to rebuild this kind of command structure. Maybe longer. "We did it," she told Admiral Webb when she delivered her report. "The swarm in this sector is fragmented. They can't coordinate attacks. Earth has time to evacuate. Time to rebuild defenses." Webb looked at the cost analysis on his display. 60 ships down to 2. 12,000 crew down to 3,000. Titan's Hope and everyone on it. The price had been devastating. Was it worth it? He asked. Sarah thought of her family. Of the 47 colonies consumed by the swarm. Of the billions of humans who now had a chance to survive. "Yes," she said. "It was worth it." The 2 battered ships made the jump back to Sol System. The Indomitable's engines barely held together. The Perseverance, being towed, was more wreckage than ship. When they emerged near Mars, every operational human vessel in the system rushed to meet them. Admiral Webb stood on the bridge, looking at the tactical display showing Earth, Mars, and the orbiting stations home. Against all odds, they'd made it home. Broadcast a message to Earth Command. Mission accomplished. The hub is destroyed. The response came instantly. Across Sol System, every ship, every station, every settlement erupted in celebration. But Webb couldn't celebrate yet. He thought of all the names he'd have to add to the memorial. All the families he'd have to write letters to. All the people who died to make this victory possible. Ambassador Chun met him when the Indomitable docked at Mars Station. She looked older than when he'd last seen her, the weight of leadership showing in her face. "The Galactic Council wants to speak with you. They're calling an emergency session." "Let them wait," Webb said. "First, I need to write letters to 9,000 families." Chun nodded. She understood. The evacuation has already begun. With the swarm disrupted, we have time. Colonies that were abandoned are being reached. People we thought were dead are being saved. That helped. A little. Webb pulled up the casualty list and started writing. Each letter personal. Each one acknowledging the sacrifice. It took him 3 days to finish them all. When he finally stood before the Galactic Council, the chamber was different than before. Representatives who had watched humanity's first briefing with pity now looked at Webb with something else: respect, maybe even awe. The Catherine representative spoke first. "Admiral Webb, your species accomplished what we thought impossible. You destroyed a swarm hub with minimal forces. We have never seen such determination." "It wasn't determination," Webb said flatly. "It was desperation. We had no choice." "You had many choices." Kazrek, the Dradok war leader, rumbled. "You could have evacuated. You could have scattered. You could have surrendered. Instead, you attacked. That was not desperation. That was courage." The Morellian representative pulled up trade agreements. "We would like to discuss reconstruction support. Humanity will need resources to rebuild." Chun stepped forward. "Humanity will accept fair trade agreements. But we won't accept charity. We didn't fight to become dependents. We fought to remain free." The council chamber was silent for a moment. Then the Catherine representative made a gesture that Webb had learned meant profound respect. "You have earned your place among us, not as a dying species, but as an equal." The council vote was unanimous. Humanity received a permanent Security Council seat, the first granted to a species with such a short galactic presence. More importantly, they received military cooperation agreements. The galaxy had learned something. Humanity could fight the swarm, and other species wanted to learn how back on Earth. Memorials were being built. The largest one, in Geneva, listed every person lost to the swarm, every colony consumed, every ship destroyed. The monument was made of black stone, and at its base was a simple inscription: "Humanity turned desperation into victory." Dr. Okonkwo stood before the memorial, looking at her family's names carved in stone. Other survivors gathered around her, each finding their own lost loved ones. A young woman placed flowers at the base. An old man saluted. Children too young to understand the war traced names with their fingers. "Dr. Okonkwo?" A voice interrupted her thoughts. A military officer, young, wearing the uniform of Earth's reformed defense fleet. "I'm Lieutenant Chun. I wanted to thank you. My entire family was on colony world Tau Ceti. Your research gave us time to evacuate them." Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. Her research had saved millions, but it hadn't saved her parents, hadn't saved her brother. The victory was real, but it was built on losses that could never be recovered. "What you did mattered," the lieutenant continued. "Everyone knows it. The swarm disruption technology is being installed on every ship now. You changed how we fight." After the lieutenant left, Sarah allowed herself a moment of grief. Then she straightened her shoulders and walked away from the memorial. There was work to do. The swarm was disrupted, not defeated. They would regroup eventually. Humanity needed to be ready. Admiral Webb retired from active military service, but became an advisor to Earth's Defense Command. He couldn't fight anymore, the nightmares were too strong, but he could teach. Every officer in the new fleet studied the Battle of Kepler 442. Every tactical manual included the lessons learned from that desperate attack. Webb gave lectures at the military academy, always starting with the same statement: "We lost 9,000 people to destroy one hub. That's not a victory to celebrate. That's a reminder of what warfare costs. If you ever command a fleet, remember those 9,000 names. Remember that every decision you make affects real people with real lives." 5 years after the battle, Earth's defense fleet was stronger than ever. New ships, new weapons, new tactics, all based on what humanity had learned fighting the swarm. But more importantly, humanity had changed. They were no longer the quiet species hoping to survive. They were hunters. Ambassador Chen stood before the Galactic Council one final time before retiring. 5 years ago, you offered humanity relocation as laborers. Today, we're the primary defense against the swarm in this sector. 23 species have requested human military advisors. 17 have adopted our disruption technology. The galaxy looks to Earth for leadership against the swarm threat. She paused, letting that sink in. We didn't ask for this war, but we learned how to fight it. And we'll keep fighting until the swarm learns to fear humanity the way we once feared them. The council received her statement in silence. The transformation was complete. Humanity had gone from victims to veterans to victors. On Titan, where Titan's Hope had once orbited, a new memorial floated in space. A simple structure marking where Kai Nakamura and his 300 volunteers had made their sacrifice. Survivors from the colony gathered there every year, telling stories of the people who turned a mining asteroid into a weapon. Elena Chen, who had survived because Kai forced her onto an evacuation ship at gunpoint, became the memorial's keeper. She gave tours to visitors, showing them the old colony schematics, explaining how ordinary people had done something extraordinary. They weren't soldiers, she always said. They were miners, engineers, doctors, farmers. Regular people who decided that dying on their feet was better than living on their knees. Kai used to say that desperation wasn't weakness. It was fuel. They proved him right. Dr. Okonkwo received the Galaxy Cross, humanity's highest honor. She accepted it in a private ceremony, uncomfortable with the attention. Admiral Webb was there, along with Ambassador Chen and survivors from the Perseverance. They didn't celebrate. They just acknowledged what had been done and what it had cost. Later, Sarah returned to her lab. The swarm was still out there, regrouping. Her disruption technology had bought humanity time, but time ran out eventually. She had work to do, research to conduct, weapons to develop. The war wasn't over, but for the first time since her family died, she felt something other than grief. Purpose, direction, hope, on the bridge of the new carrier Indomitable II, named after its predecessor, Commander Liu stood as captain. She'd survived the original Indomitable's near destruction and refused to leave military service. Now she led training exercises for the new fleet, teaching young officers the lessons learned in blood. Remember, she told her cadets during simulations, the swarm expects prey. Give them predators instead. They expect defense. Give them offense. They expect logic. Give them desperation turned into strategy. The cadets listened. They'd all grown up hearing stories of the Battle of Kepler 442, of Titan's Hope's sacrifice, of the 2 ships that made it home out of 60. The stories had become legend, but the lessons remained practical. Humanity patrolled the borders of swarm space now. Not fleeing, hunting. When swarm scouts appeared, human ships engaged them aggressively. When swarm forces tried to re-establish coordination networks, human disruption technology scattered them. The species that had nearly died now led the galaxy's defense. Admiral Webb, now white-haired and walking with a cane, stood before the memorial in Geneva on the 10th anniversary of the battle. Thousands gathered to remember. Veterans, survivors, families of the lost. The names on the black stone seemed to glow in the evening light. A reporter asked him the question everyone wanted answered. Was it worth it? The cost was so high. Webb looked at Earth's skyline, at the ships visible in orbit, at the crowds of people who existed only because desperate humans had refused to quit. Ask the billions who are alive today because we fought. Ask the colonies that were evacuated in time. Ask the children born after the battle who will never know the fear we felt. He paused, then added quietly, but also remember the 9,000 who didn't come home. Remember Kai Nakamura and Titan's Hope. Remember every ship, every crew, every person who died. The victory was worth it. But it was never free. As the sun set, the memorial's eternal flame flickered in the wind. Around it, humans gathered as they did every year, speaking the names of the lost, telling the stories, making sure that Desperation's victory was never forgotten. In space, at the edge of swarm territory, human patrol ships maintained their watch, ready, vigilant, no longer prey. The galaxy had learned its lesson. When you back humanity into a corner, when you give them no choice but desperation, they don't collapse. They turn that desperation into a weapon, and they never, ever quit fighting.